The wind came howling across the high Montana prairie, a relentless, icy river that cut through the tall, sun-bleached grass and rattled the sparse sagebrush dotting the landscape. Clouds scudded low over the horizon, swollen with the promise of a storm, dark and brooding against the late afternoon sky. In the distance, the skeletal ridges of the Bighorn Mountains etched themselves against the fading gold of sunlight, their peaks already swallowed by shadow. The vastness of the land made one feel both insignificant and privy to something ancient and untamed, a realm that had long resisted human mastery. Amid this raw expanse, Dr. Ayanna Red Elk, a Native American wildlife biologist, moved with quiet purpose, her boots crunching over the brittle grass, each step deliberate. Her eyes, dark and attentive, scanned the horizon with a practiced patience. Years of tracking, studying, and walking alongside wild creatures had taught her to notice what others might overlook. She could read the subtle signs of distress in animals, a sudden twitch of an ear, the tense set of a shoulder, the uneven rhythm of a hoof on the soil. It was during such a survey, while checking the telemetry of a reintroduced buffalo herd, that she first noticed him, or rather, what she could barely believe she was seeing. Standing alone atop a shallow rise, half shrouded in the waning light and a swirl of dust, was a massive bull buffalo. His coat was rich chestnut brown, matted and flecked with the pale dust of the plains, each strand clumped with remnants of dried mud and vegetation. He towered at 6 feet at the shoulder, a true behemoth of muscle and bone, each breath audible in the crisp air as a deep, rasping hiss. But it was not his size that seized her attention, it was the unusual stillness of his posture and the look in his eyes. Ayanna had seen countless buffalo in her career, from the smallest calves to the fiercest bulls, yet there was an intelligence, a depth of focus, in his gaze that seemed almost human. He was not grazing, not moving with the herd's slow rhythm, and, remarkably, he did not flee when her truck approached. Instead, he stood rooted, muscles taut, nostrils flaring, as if he were guarding something precious, some secret that demanded protection above all else. Her pulse quickened. It was uncommon to see a wild buffalo act this way, especially alone and in apparent distress. Even more disturbing was the patch of raw, red gashes along his flank, deep enough to suggest a recent skirmish or accident. His left hind leg bore a limping weight shift, the tendon straining visibly with every small movement. The scent of iron, blood mingled with the pungent aroma of sagebrush and trampled prairie grasses, filled the air, sharp and undeniable. Yet, despite his injuries, there was an unyielding determination in the way he held his head high, the curve of his massive horns catching the fading sun. Ayanna knelt behind a low tuft of sagebrush to survey him with binoculars, her breath fogging in the cold air. She felt a surge of both awe and concern. This was no ordinary scene, something extraordinary was happening here. From her vantage, she noticed a subtle movement near the buffalo's hooves, a shadow against the dry earth, small and still. Her heart skipped a beat. Was it a stray animal, a predator, or something more vulnerable? The buffalo shifted slightly, lowering his massive head, his deep, rumbling bellow echoing across the plains. The sound was not threatening, it was protective, resonant, almost like a warning to any who might intrude upon whatever he guarded. The wind carried it toward her, vibrating through the soles of her boots. Ayanna's training told her that the animal was aware of her presence, and yet, he had not chosen flight, not even a cautious retreat. He remained vigilant, his eyes scanning the horizon and returning again to the small, indistinct shape at his feet. Ayanna carefully radioed her colleague, Mateo, who was monitoring telemetry from another ridge, her voice low, almost reverent. "Mateo, you're not going to believe this. There's a bull here, alone, wounded, and he's not moving. Something's at his feet, but I can't see clearly from here. Could be a calf, or, God, I hope it's not something worse." She could hear the faint static of his reply, mixed with the distant rumble of the approaching storm. "Copy that, Ayanna. Keep your distance. That's unusual behavior. No bull just stands over something without reason. Don't approach too fast. She crouched lower, scanning the ground around him. Her boots pressed into the brittle soil as she edged closer, mindful of her presence, making as little sound as possible. Every step revealed more. The buffalo's fur was matted with blood along the flank, streaks darkened by the dust of the prairie. His eyes, dark and knowing, followed her silently. Ayana's gaze dropped again to the shape under the buffalo. Now she could see it more clearly, a tiny, small human form, curled into the dirt, seemingly unconscious, vulnerable. The child's blonde hair was dirt-streaked, the small frame trembling from cold and fear. The realization struck her with the force of the prairie wind itself. The buffalo had somehow found this child, and rather than fleeing, he had stayed, guarding it with every ounce of his enormous presence. The sky darkened as clouds gathered faster, and the first sharp edge of wind whipped against her face, carrying the smell of ozone and rain. Lightning flickered briefly on the distant horizon. The urgency of the situation pressed down on her. The child would not survive long in the open prairie under the oncoming storm, and yet, here was a massive buffalo, wounded, exhausted, yet refusing to abandon the helpless creature at his feet. He had instinctively taken on the role of protector, a guardian born not of human instruction but of some deep, intuitive understanding. Ayana's mind raced. How could she get close enough to help the child without alarming the buffalo? She knew that wild animals, even the largest and seemingly most placid, could turn violent when their charge was threatened. But as she watched, the buffalo's posture shifted slightly, and she saw something in his eyes, a recognition of her intent, a wariness tempered with curiosity. He snorted, steam curling from his nostrils, pawing the ground in a subtle warning. Yet he did not charge, nor did he attempt to flee. He was willing her to understand, to see without threatening. From the ridge behind her, a local rancher appeared, his figure small against the vastness of the plain. His call was cautious, tinged with disbelief. "Ayana? Are you seeing what I'm seeing?" He gestured with a gloved hand toward the immense bull. "That animal, he's guarding something." "Yes," she whispered back, almost to herself, "a child." Her words trembled as she realized the stakes. The wind shifted again, carrying the soft, labored breathing of the buffalo, the faint sound of a child whimpering, and the distant roll of thunder. Time seemed to slow. Every step forward had to be measured. She took a deep breath, inhaling the mingled scents of sage, dust, and blood. She slowly reached for her radio, signaling Mateo again. "We're going to need backup, veterinary support, and we might have to calm the buffalo enough to reach the child. Proceed carefully." The buffalo shifted again, lowering his massive head to touch the child gently with his snout. It was an astonishing display of gentleness and intelligence. Despite the deep wound along his side, he nudged the small human with care, almost as if reassuring the child that it was safe, that he would not allow harm to come. The storm's first raindrops began to spatter across the prairie, sharp and cold, striking the buffalo's back and running down his fur in rivulets. Yet he did not move. He seemed to anchor himself against the coming tempest, a living bastion of protection. Ayana edged closer, voice soft and soothing, careful not to make sudden movements. "Hey there, it's okay," she murmured, keeping her hands visible and low. "We're here to help." The child stirred slightly, eyelids fluttering, a soft whine escaping lips chapped by wind and dust. The buffalo's gaze flicked toward Ayana, measuring her, assessing whether her intentions were pure. He snorted again, a low, warning exhale that shook the air around her. Yet he allowed her presence, his massive frame a living shield over the small, trembling body. Minutes stretched into eternity as she considered the logistics. A rescue here was risky, thunder cracked overhead, the rain thickened, and the terrain was uneven and treacherous. One misstep, one sudden move, and the buffalo could react unpredictably. Yet the child needed immediate attention. Ayana adjusted her pack, pulling out a small, dry blanket and a pouch of emergency rations, knowing she might have only one chance to approach closely enough without spooking him. From behind, she heard the rancher mutter in awe, "I've never seen anything like this. He's actually protecting the kid. He's feeding it. Look, he's pushing some berries toward it." Indeed, the buffalo had apparently found wild berries in the scrub, guiding them to the child with careful nudges, his instincts blending with an almost human sense of nurturing. Ayana's throat tightened. This was no ordinary animal encounter, it was a profound, almost spiritual moment, a glimpse of intelligence and compassion that transcended species. The storm's approach intensified. Lightning lit the sky in blinding flashes, thunder rolling like the roar of some primordial force across the plains. Ayana felt urgency coiling in her chest. She had to reach the child, but the buffalo must not be startled. One wrong gesture, one misstep, and the fragile trust established in the wind and rain would shatter. She crouched lower, keeping her eyes level with the buffalo, and whispered, "We're not here to hurt you. Just, stay calm. We'll help." The massive bull snorted, a plume of mist rising from his nostrils, but remained over the child, muscles coiled yet controlled, his gaze unwavering. And then came a faint sound, barely perceptible beneath the wind, a soft murmur, a cry almost too small to register. Ayana's ears pricked. It came from directly beneath the buffalo's massive hooves. Something was hidden there, something fragile, vulnerable, and precious. The realization struck her with a cold clarity: the child might have been abandoned, lost, or in some unimaginable danger, and this wounded giant had found them, taking on a responsibility that no human could impose or anticipate. The cliffhanger pressed down on her with unrelenting force. What exactly had the buffalo discovered? How had the child ended up alone on this unforgiving plain? And, most importantly, how would she, a single human amid the vast windswept wilderness, bridge the gap of trust to reach them both safely? The storm was coming, the plains were vast, and the bull was both guardian and wounded sentinel. Ayana knew that the next moments would define everything. To act too hastily would risk lives, to wait too long could mean tragedy. She tightened her grip on the radio, inhaled the mingled scents of blood, wet grass, and sage, and whispered again, almost to herself, "We're coming. Hold on. I promise you won't be alone." The buffalo snorted once more, eyes glinting with intelligence and some primal understanding, and the soft whine of the child mingled with the whistle of the wind as the rain began to pour in earnest. Somewhere in the tempest, hope and courage, human and animal, were about to collide in a story that neither Ayana nor the plains would ever forget. The storm had arrived fully now, lashing the prairie with sharp, icy rain that pounded the buffalo's massive back and slicked his thick chestnut fur into dark, glistening strands, each droplet running down the curve of his enormous shoulders like rivulets of silver. The wind swept in waves across the open plains, carrying with it the scent of wet earth and sage, and the low rumble of distant thunder seemed to vibrate through the very soil beneath his hooves. He shifted his weight carefully, one powerful leg flexing despite the lingering ache from the raw gashes along his flank, muscles rippling beneath the dense coat. His head lowered gently over the small, curled form beneath him, and he nudged it with the tip of his broad snout, careful not to apply pressure, careful to shield rather than harm. The child stirred faintly, the soft breath caught in a shiver, and the buffalo adjusted again, bracing against the uneven ground, hooves pressing into the mud as if to anchor himself, creating a living shelter from the storm. His deep, rumbling breath mingled with the hiss of rain, each exhalation a cadence of patience, a rhythm that seemed to soothe the small human beneath him. The wet grass and soil clung to his legs, the mud cool against the rough pads of his hooves, yet he remained vigilant, ears swiveling toward the sound of the wind, the distant cries of birds seeking cover, the subtle movements of the grass signaling the approach of unseen predators. Every sense was alert, every muscle poised, yet he did not panic. Instead, he calculated, measured, holding the child in a careful perimeter of protection. With each shift of his great body, he repositioned so the child remained beneath the deepest overhang of his flanks, hooves anchored wide to maintain balance on the slick earth. Rainwater ran off the curve of his back in thick sheets, dripping onto the soil in muffled patters, yet he seemed almost to welcome it, as if the cold, wet on his body sharpened his senses, heightened his awareness of the fragile life under his guardianship. His horns, dark and glinting with moisture, arched majestically above, and he angled them subtly, creating a barrier that concealed the child from sight while leaving himself fully exposed to the sky. Lightning flashed, illuminating the wet, powerful contours of his frame, and he flinched only once, then returned his gaze to the small form beneath him, eyes dark, intelligent, and unwavering, filled with a determination that surpassed the ordinary instincts of his species. The child whimpered softly, tiny lips parted in a quiet murmur, and the buffalo's breath puffed over it, warming, reassuring, a living canopy of life and strength. He lowered his head and nudged the child toward a slightly higher mound of earth, a subtle maneuver that kept the small body from lying in pooled water, demonstrating an instinctual understanding of comfort and care that defied expectation. His chest heaved with effort, each inhale drew deep into the lungs, filling the vast ribcage with air, each exhale a steady rhythm that seemed almost to synchronize with the child's shallow breaths. The rain continued in relentless sheets, soaking the earth, and the buffalo pressed closer, his wet coat pressing like a protective mantle, the sound of his low grunts mingling with the whip of wind and the percussion of rain. Every so often he pawed the mud gently, soft thuds of hooves against sodden ground, careful not to disturb the child yet shifting debris or clumps of grass to create a slightly more comfortable perch. He grazed briefly on wet leaves and berries pressed into reach, then nudged them toward the small form, guiding the nourishment with a tenderness that belied his immense bulk. He sniffed constantly, nostrils flaring, detecting the faintest signs of distress in the child's body, the tremble of fingers, the slight whimper, the shallow inhalation of cold air, and responded with minute adjustments, lowering his head, brushing the child's hair with a soft nudge, or shifting one massive hoof to block the wind and rain. As the storm grew louder, lightning flickering across the darkened sky, he stiffened briefly, ears angled sharply to the distant horizon, yet he never left his post, never faltered in the vigil he had taken upon himself. He shifted again, repositioning, hooves sinking into the mud, and the child rolled slightly, finding comfort in the warmth of his side, the faint pulse of his deep, steady breathing, the subtle vibrations of life and strength that resonated through the massive body. With each passing hour, the buffalo's movements became a choreography of protection, head lowered, horns angled, body forming a living shield, hooves adjusting for balance, nostrils flaring to detect threats, eyes scanning the distance. The rainwater formed streams along his thick fur, dripping from the tips of his ears and along the sides of his massive jaw, yet he did not shake or retreat, his focus remained absolute. Occasionally he let out a deep, low bellow, a sound both resonant and soothing, that carried across the wet prairie, a call that was protective in its nature, communicating in tones of strength and assurance. When the wind shifted, carrying the scent of wet earth, pine, and distant predators, he adjusted stance, planting his forelegs slightly forward to counter the push of the gusts, muscles tensing beneath the soaked coat, yet always keeping the child within the protective fold. Every small adjustment was purposeful, a nudge here, a lift of his head there, the tiniest shift of his massive frame to shield from wind or water, the precise placement of a hoof to block chill. His eyes, deep, dark, and luminous in the intermittent light, never left the child, never strayed in their vigilance. He flicked his ears against the wind, and even the raindrops sliding down the curve of his horns did not deter him from his sacred watch. Minutes became hours, the storm's fury did not lessen, yet the buffalo's patience was infinite. He guided the child to lean against the warmth of his shoulder, chest pressed to flank, offering heat and reassurance, a living barrier against the elements. He pawed gently at nearby mud to remove stones that could press uncomfortably, guiding tiny limbs into safe positions. Rain soaked the berries he had gathered, yet he carefully pushed them toward the child again, nudging one soft fruit after another with a gentle touch of his muzzle, ensuring that nourishment could reach lips small and trembling. His muscles ached from the long vigil, the rawness along his flanks stinging with each movement, yet he bore it stoically, anchored by an unspoken duty. Occasionally, lightning illuminated the vast plain, revealing the magnificent sweep of his back, the sheen of wet fur, the sharp glint of horns arcing like dark crescents over the child, and in those flashes, he seemed almost mythic, a creature of legend and living heart, a guardian embodying the resilience and intelligence of his species. The child, exhausted and shivering, pressed closer instinctively, and the buffalo adjusted again, moving his massive head slightly, brushing the small hair back with a delicate nudge. Rain ran in thick lines along the curve of his face, along the jaw, down the thick neck, yet he remained unmoved, a sentinel of patience and instinctual care. He shifted slightly, hooves sinking into softened earth, mud clinging in thick clumps, yet he repositioned to maintain optimal protection. Every blink, every flare of nostrils, every low rumble of breath was deliberate, a constant survey of danger and assurance. He grazed momentarily, pulling tender wet leaves from nearby scrub, then nudged them again toward the child, offering sustenance. With the storm's intensity rising, the buffalo adjusted his massive shoulders to create a slight canopy of body over the child, turning slightly to deflect wind and rain, muscles coiled yet relaxed, movements precise and purposeful. The small whimper from the child was met with a low, soft exhalation from the buffalo, as if acknowledging and soothing, his deep rumble resonating through the earth beneath them both. Lightning illuminated the wet, massive contours of his body again, and for a moment, the world seemed to hold its breath, vast prairie, tempest above, guardian and small human beneath, all bound in an extraordinary, silent pact of survival and care. He lowered his head once more, nose brushing the child's hair, gently nudging berries toward a trembling hand, ensuring even the smallest morsels reached lips. Rain dripped from the tips of his ears onto the child's shoulder, yet he remained still, steady, unwavering. Each shifting gust of wind, each burst of thunder, each drop of rain was met with patient adjustment, the powerful body bending and flexing to maintain warmth and shelter, hooves sinking and gripping, muscles rippling under thick fur, eyes dark, luminous, and unflinching. Hours passed in this tense, miraculous vigil, the buffalo maintaining a continuous balance of protection, sustenance, and warmth, never breaking focus, never relinquishing the precious life beneath him. And when the distant storm began to waver, thunder rolling away and the rain softening to mist, the buffalo remained kneeling, or rather, anchoring his massive body over the child, ensuring that even the final shiver, the faintest stir of fear or cold, would be met with the same careful guardianship he had shown from the first drop to the last. His coat, though soaked and streaked with mud and blood, glistened with a solemn majesty in the soft, post-storm light. Each breath came slow and deliberate, chest heaving, head lowered protectively, horns glinting, ears twitching with residual alertness, yet with the faintest relaxation now that the immediate fury had subsided. The child lay beneath him, safe and warm against the dense flank, tiny hand brushing against the thick fur, and for a moment, the prairie fell silent except for the gentle drip of water from the buffalo's body, the soft rustle of leaves, the whisper of wind through wet grasses. He did not move yet, not fully, not until he sensed that the danger had passed, that the precious life beneath him could rest in relative safety. And still, his eyes remained watchful, scanning the horizon, reading the signs of the prairie, ever vigilant, embodying a patience and intelligence that transcended the ordinary, a testament to the extraordinary bond that had formed in the eye of the storm, a bond forged of instinct, care, and unspoken understanding between a mighty buffalo and a fragile human child. The storm had relented to a persistent drizzle, but the prairie remained slick, mud clinging to the buffalo's hooves and caked along his thick, chestnut coat, streaked now with both wet soil and the faint remnants of the earlier injuries along his flanks. Each breath he drew was deep and deliberate, chest rising with a resonant swell, a cadence that seemed to mirror the rhythm of life itself, steadying both him and the fragile child beneath his massive body. The small form stirred again, a weak whimper that drew the buffalo's attention immediately. He lowered his head carefully, nostrils flaring, pressing his snout against the child with a gentleness that belied his immense power, as if communicating without words, signaling safety and patience, urging calm. The earth beneath him squelched with each slight movement, hooves adjusting to maintain balance on the uneven terrain, muscles taut yet fluid, capable of explosive force but restrained by a conscious will to protect rather than dominate. He shifted his massive frame slightly, the subtle groan of his joints blending with the soft murmur of wind and drizzle, creating a rhythm of motion that was deliberate, a choreography of guardianship. Each careful adjustment repositioned the child away from shallow pools of water and the slickest mud, his massive head and arched horns forming a canopy of protection. He pawed gently at debris, twigs, flattened grass, small stones, nudging them away with careful, deliberate movements, ensuring no hidden dangers pressed against the child's body. The child's tiny fingers grazed the wet fur of the buffalo, and in response, the great animal exhaled a low, resonant rumble, a vibration that traveled through the ground, through his body, a reassurance of presence, a gentle heartbeat of life that seemed to merge their existences in that moment of urgent care. Lightning, still flickering on the horizon, illuminated his massive form, the sheen of water and mud across his shoulders, the powerful curve of his horns that arched protectively above, and the soft press of his muzzle against the child. Each movement, though heavy with his enormous bulk, was calculated with an intelligence that transcended instinct, an understanding of the fragile human beneath, an awareness of the necessity of patience, of precise care. The child's eyes fluttered open briefly, gaze meeting the dark, intelligent depths of the buffalo's, and in that instant, a silent understanding passed between them, a bond formed through instinct, endurance, and mutual reliance. The buffalo's nostrils flared, inhaling the scent of rain, wet grass, the faint human aroma of the child, and with it, a heightened sense of determination. He rose slightly, muscles coiling, chest heaving, and nudged the child gently to shift onto a small rise in the terrain, creating a natural elevation that would help keep the child drier, safer, and shielded from the residual chill of rain-soaked prairie soil. His horns glinted with drops of moisture, casting brief shadows over the child, forming an almost sacred canopy, a living shield against the elements. The small hands of the child grasped the fur instinctively, a faint shiver running along the spine, and the buffalo lowered his massive head again, pressing the warmth of his muzzle along the child's cheek, encouraging stillness, coaxing confidence through pure presence. His eyes scanned constantly, alert for unseen threats, the slightest ripple in the grass, the subtle movement of distant shadows, the change in wind direction. Each perception was registered, processed, and acted upon with precise judgment. A low rumble rolled through him, resonant and measured, a deep sound that seemed almost like a whisper of encouragement, a vibration that soothed trembling limbs and quivering breaths. He shifted again, lifting one foreleg slightly, adjusting hooves in the slick mud, the powerful muscles of his shoulders tensing with the effort, yet always careful not to disturb the small form beneath. Rain continued in intermittent showers, slicking the grass, dampening the ground, yet the buffalo's presence was an unyielding constant, a living fortress, a beacon of protection and life. He reached down, grazing tender leaves and small clusters of wet berries with his wide, sensitive muzzle, then nudged them gently toward the child, offering sustenance, teaching through gesture and gentle pressure how to take nourishment without distress, the tiniest lesson of care delivered without urgency but with immense patience. He pawed lightly again, moving small clumps of mud, creating a subtle barrier against the flow of water from a nearby rivulet, shifting his massive frame to provide even more shelter, hooves sinking and gripping the earth with deliberate force. The child, now gaining a faint warmth and sense of security, shifted slightly, and the buffalo responded instantly, nudging the small body closer to the sheltering arc of his flank, creating a pocket of protection, a living cradle of fur and muscle. His eyes flicked toward the horizon, reading the subtle cues of the landscape, the softening of the rain, the receding shadow of the storm, the distant tremor of thunder. He allowed himself a brief release of tension, a deep exhalation, though his vigilance remained intact. Each breath he drew seemed to resonate in harmony with the child's own, a symphony of life in the midst of wild chaos. As minutes stretched into hours, he began to shift again with increasing purpose, understanding perhaps instinctively that the moment of transition was near. He nudged the child gently, guiding the small body toward a slightly higher rise, a natural path of movement, ensuring that the fragile form remained protected and stable even as he prepared to relocate. Muscles coiled beneath the wet, thick fur, then released in precise bursts of controlled motion, adjusting hooves, repositioning shoulders, lowering head, lifting hindquarters, all in synchrony with the child's movements, anticipating needs before they were expressed, a choreography of care born of instinct, intelligence, and pure protective drive. He grazed again briefly, drawing in tender leaves, and nudged them toward the child with delicate precision, ensuring nourishment even during this critical movement, the act almost ritualistic in its careful repetition, a combination of survival, compassion, and extraordinary foresight. His hooves gripped the uneven, slick terrain as he began a careful, measured movement toward a more sheltered depression, slight incline providing. The storm had passed fully now, leaving a wet prairie glistening under the tentative sunlight, droplets clinging to the thick chestnut fur of the buffalo, weighing down the strands, streaked with dried mud and the faint marks of previous injuries along his flanks and shoulders, each line and scar a testament to survival, to resilience, to the battles fought in silence and in protection of those too small or fragile to defend themselves. He shifted slowly, muscles rippling beneath his dense coat, massive hooves pressing into the softened soil, anchoring himself as he adjusted over the child, ensuring warmth and comfort without crushing or startling, each movement deliberate, precise, a choreography born of instinct and intelligence. The child lay nestled against his flank, faint warmth from the massive body radiating through cold limbs, and the buffalo pressed his head gently closer, nostrils flaring, sniffing, sensing every subtle change in breathing, every tremble, every sign of discomfort, ensuring that the small form beneath him remained safe, nurtured, and shielded. The prairie exhaled moisture, the wind soft now, carrying with it the scent of wet sage, damp earth, and the faint metallic tang of mineral-rich soil, and the buffalo's ears flicked constantly, scanning the environment, attuned to the smallest changes, the subtlest vibrations in the ground, the distant rustle of grass, all signals that might indicate danger or opportunity to further protect the fragile life beneath him. He nudged the child gently, guiding fingers toward the wet berries scattered near the mound, pressing the small hands toward nourishment, demonstrating a patience and teaching instinct that defied expectations, a sophisticated understanding of care and sustenance that bridged species in a silent covenant. Each exhale was measured, a low, vibrating rumble that resonated through the child, through the wet earth, a heartbeat of reassurance, steady, constant, a living pulse of security that radiated from the enormous body pressed above. The buffalo shifted slightly, hooves sinking into the softened soil, adjusting posture to provide more coverage from the lingering damp chill, rolling shoulders, bending powerful neck muscles, curving horns in a protective arc, eyes scanning the horizon in a slow, deliberate sweep, ensuring that no unseen threats approached while maintaining vigilance over the small human beneath. He grazed briefly, drawing in tender shoots and moist leaves from nearby scrub, then nudged them carefully toward the child's lips, guiding ingestion, demonstrating care without force, every movement calculated to balance nourishment and safety. The child's fingers brushed wet fur, exploring the coarse texture, and the buffalo exhaled a soft, resonant hum, a vibration that traveled through fur and bone, calming, teaching, connecting, a silent dialogue of presence and trust. He pawed lightly at the muddy earth, moving debris, ensuring a dry, comfortable resting place, shifting massive weight gradually, each adjustment showing acute awareness of the child's position, balance, and safety. His eyes reflected intelligence and emotion, a deep, dark luminescence that scanned constantly, evaluating, anticipating, responding, a mind engaged fully in the welfare of the small life beneath him. Muscles coiled beneath wet fur, thick and powerful, yet flexing with precision, each movement demonstrating control, patience, and extraordinary insight. Rainwater glistened on the curve of his horns, on the wet strands of fur, catching the sunlight, forming tiny rivulets that dripped softly into the earth below, yet he remained immovable in purpose, a sentinel of protection, a guardian born of instinct, strength, and the subtle calculation of care. The child shifted slightly, eyes opening faintly, and the buffalo pressed a gentle nudge of his muzzle to encourage stillness and security, a reassurance of warmth, safety, and continuity. Each breath, deep and resonant, moved the child imperceptibly with the vibration, a subtle rhythm of life shared between guardian and dependent. He shifted again, hooves adjusting in the soft soil, body curving to provide a natural sheltering arc, horns creating a canopy, head lowered protectively, movements fluid yet deliberate, a balance of force and gentleness that only such a massive creature could achieve with such finesse. He grazed once more, drawing berries and tender leaves, nudging them toward the child, each motion measured, careful, an offering of sustenance without disturbance. He exhaled deeply, chest heaving, a low rumble of contented protection, eyes glimmering with a solemn majesty, nostrils flaring in constant vigilance. The sun grew higher, weak at first, warming the dampened prairie, and the buffalo adjusted subtly, shifting weight, aligning body to maximize shelter while allowing warmth to seep to the child beneath. Each adjustment, though heavy with muscle and bulk, was guided by the finest sense of observation, the intelligence to read subtle shifts in breathing, movement, and posture of the small human he had sworn to protect. Mud and wet earth clung to hooves and flanks, yet he pawed carefully at the ground, removing clumps that might press uncomfortably against tiny limbs, nudging berries again with delicate precision, guiding ingestion, balancing care and nourishment seamlessly. Hours passed in this quiet, meticulous guardianship. The buffalo's patience never waned, his mind a constant focus on survival, comfort, and protection, every motion a testament to strength harnessed for compassion, intelligence manifest in action, and instinct elevated to purpose. He pressed closer again, nudging the child gently onto a slight rise, soft earth forming a natural cradle, hooves sinking into mud for stability, muscles coiled beneath wet fur, movements precise and unerring. Sunlight caught the curve of his horns, illuminating the vast sweep of powerful shoulders, the arch of neck, the dense, chestnut fur wet and gleaming, and in that light, he seemed monumental, almost mythic, a creature of immense power tempered by unparalleled patience and empathy. Each exhale resonated through chest and shoulders, vibrations carrying through earth and body alike, a symphony of protection and guardianship. He pawed lightly again, shifting earth, adjusting posture, hooves sinking and gripping, every movement synchronized with subtle monitoring of the child's responses, every breath, every sigh, every flicker of eyelid observed and reacted to with profound care. Berries and leaves were nudged gently toward the child repeatedly, every motion deliberate, ensuring sustenance reached tiny hands and lips, teaching survival through gesture, guidance, and presence. He shifted slightly, curling flank closer, creating a pocket of warmth, pressing gently, exhaling steadily, eyes scanning horizon and surroundings constantly, ears flicking with sensitivity to every whisper of wind, every distant rustle, every potential threat or change. The child stirred, small fingers brushing fur, and the buffalo exhaled, low rumble vibrating through the small body, a signal of safety and connection, a reinforcement of trust that had been forged through storm, vigilance, and care. Hours melted into quiet observation, the prairie returning to calm, the sun warming wet fur and soil, the buffalo adjusting, shifting, nudging, guiding, ever mindful of comfort, nourishment, and shelter. His eyes, deep and luminous, reflected an intelligence that measured threat, interpreted need, and executed care without hesitation. Hooves sank into mud as he moved slightly, adjusting shoulders, head, neck, flanks to maximize protection, warmth, and access to nourishment, each action a display of instinct refined into understanding, strength tempered by empathy. He nudged berries again, pressed the child into a slightly higher rise, adjusted posture, exhaled with long, resonant breath, chest rising and falling with precise rhythm, every movement an unbroken chain of guardianship. Mud clung to wet fur and hooves, yet he remained steadfast, muscles rippling under dense coat, hooves flexing for balance, body curving to shield, horns creating natural arc, eyes vigilant and luminous, ears flicking, nostrils flaring, every fiber of being engaged in the sole purpose of protection, comfort, and care. The sun climbed higher, warming wet earth, softening mud, and the buffalo pressed closer, nudging gently, shifting weight, pawing lightly, guiding, adjusting, ensuring the child was nourished, warm, and secure, a living fortress of patience, intelligence, and devotion. Hours passed in this delicate, tireless dance of guardianship, a testament to the resilience, intelligence, and extraordinary compassion of a creature often misunderstood, his every motion a pledge of protection, an offering of life, a demonstration of instinct elevated to profound purpose. Each breath, each low rumble, each subtle adjustment of hooves, shoulders, and head, each nudge of berries or gentle pressing of flank, spoke of an unbroken vigilance and unwavering care, a bond forged in survival and nurtured in the quiet, resilient intelligence of a mighty buffalo whose presence alone embodied sanctuary, life, and extraordinary, selfless devotion. The prairie had settled into a calm rhythm, golden light stretching across the rolling landscape, highlighting the rich chestnut hue of the buffalo's thick fur, now drying in the warmth of the sun, revealing muscles once tense with vigilance slowly relaxing, shoulders broad and powerful beneath the heavy coat, curves of his horns casting protective shadows over the small figure nestled against his flank, and in this quiet moment, the buffalo allowed a subtle shift in posture, a gentle nudge of the head to check that the child was comfortably positioned, breathing steadily, warmth radiating from his massive body, a living hearth against the chill of early morning air. The child stirred faintly, tiny fingers brushing against damp strands of fur, and the buffalo exhaled, a long, low rumble resonating through the earth beneath, a vibration of reassurance, a declaration of unwavering guardianship, a pulse of connection that seemed to communicate without words the permanence of their bond. With deliberate care, he shifted his massive shoulders, hooves sinking slightly into soft earth, adjusting the child's position atop a slight rise to maintain balance and comfort, the gentle arc of his horns forming a protective canopy, the sway of his head and neck creating a sheltering rhythm, a choreography of safety and patience perfected over hours of attentive observation. He pawed lightly at the soil, moving small clumps of earth to create a firmer, drier resting place, nudged berries toward the child with subtle pressure of his broad muzzle, guiding ingestion with precision, demonstrating not only protection but teaching, a living example of sustenance and care, every movement deliberate, fluid, and full of intention. His eyes, dark and luminous, scanned the horizon while simultaneously monitoring the child's every breath and shift, reflecting an intelligence that measured both environment and dependence simultaneously, muscles coiling and releasing beneath the dense coat with controlled grace, a testament to extraordinary strength harnessed entirely for guardianship and nurturance. The child's small hand brushed along the massive flank, and the buffalo responded instantly with a slight lowering of the head, nostrils flaring, exhaling a gentle rumble that carried reassurance through fur, bone, and earth, a sound of presence and protection that filled the space between them with warmth and safety. Each subtle shift of his hooves, each adjustment of his shoulder, each gentle press of muzzle or flank was executed with meticulous attention to balance and comfort, every action an expression of vigilance, intelligence, and the extraordinary capacity for care that had guided him through the storm, through wet mud, through hours of delicate protection, and now into a moment of quiet stability. Sunlight glinted off the curve of his horns, illuminating the powerful sweep of his shoulders and the dense, rippling muscles beneath the chestnut coat, highlighting the majesty of a creature that combined raw strength with deliberate, almost tender guardianship, a being whose presence alone radiated security, warmth, and extraordinary empathy. He nudged the child again gently toward a cluster of soft moss and dry grasses, creating a natural bed cushioned against the earth, hooves pressing and shifting as needed, every subtle movement reinforcing comfort and protection, every breath a rhythm in the living symphony of care, every rumble a wordless promise of continued safety. The child's eyes met the dark, intelligent gaze of the buffalo, and for a fleeting moment, the vastness of the prairie, the expanse of sky, the whisper of wind through grass, and the residual scent of rain seemed to fall away, leaving only the quiet, unspoken bond between protector and dependent, a connection forged in instinct, patience, and unwavering guardianship. He pawed again at small clumps of earth, nudged berries with precise pressure toward the child's tiny hands, guiding sustenance, teaching the rhythm of life, of nourishment, of survival in a world both vast and wild, every action deliberate, considered, and imbued with intelligence and empathy. The sun climbed higher, casting long shadows across wet earth now drying under warming light, highlighting the dense fur, curved horns, and powerful frame of a creature who had endured, persevered, and now flourished in the role of guardian, protector, and teacher, muscles rippling, nostrils flaring, ears flicking to subtle sounds in the distance, eyes scanning with vigilance even in this calm, reflective moment. He shifted again, carefully adjusting the child atop the rise, hooves sinking lightly into the earth for balance, massive head lowering slightly, nostrils brushing the child's cheek, exhaling warmth and reassurance, creating a cocoon of presence and security, a living barrier against any lingering threat, subtle yet powerful, firm yet tender, every movement and articulation of extraordinary care. He grazed briefly, drawing in tender leaves and soft grasses, then nudged them delicately toward the child, guiding consumption with a patience that seemed almost deliberate, teaching, every motion measured, every pressure calculated to maximize comfort, safety, and nourishment, a continuous, unbroken chain of guardianship manifest in action. His body rose and fell with steady, deep breaths, chest expanding, shoulders rippling, muscles coiling and releasing beneath thick fur, hooves flexing in precise adjustments as he repositioned slightly, ensuring that the child remained secure and comfortable, every subtle shift executed with an intelligence and awareness born of survival, instinct, and extraordinary empathy. Each rumble, each subtle pawing motion, each nudge of muzzle or flank communicated reassurance, presence, continuity, a profound intelligence guiding protection, nourishment, and care in a seamless, tireless display of guardianship. Hours continued in this quiet, measured rhythm, prairie exhaling warmth under soft sunlight, wind carrying gentle scents of sage and drying soil, and the buffalo remained vigilant, muscles rippling, hooves adjusting, horns forming a protective arc, eyes luminous, nostrils flaring with awareness, every fiber of being engaged in the constant, unbroken task of safeguarding and nurturing. He shifted again, massive body coiling slightly, hooves sinking into the earth to maintain balance as he nudged the child gently, pressing berries and tender leaves toward small hands, creating a living lesson in sustenance, in life, in the care of another, movements fluid yet deliberate, each executed with profound intelligence and patience. The child's fingers traced the wet fur, and the buffalo exhaled, a low rumble vibrating through earth, fur, and bone, a pulse of reassurance, a silent affirmation of unwavering guardianship, a wordless promise of continued protection, stability, and connection. He pawed lightly, adjusted posture, shifted shoulders and flanks, nudged again, eyes scanning the horizon while maintaining close attention to the child's subtle movements, every breath, every stir, every sigh observed and responded to with precise, tireless care. Sunlight warmed the dense chestnut fur, highlighting powerful shoulders, curved horns, thick neck muscles, and massive flanks, a living monument to strength harnessed in service of compassion, intelligence, and guardianship. The prairie stretched endlessly beneath a sky painted in shades of gold and deepening azure, sunlight glinting on the dampened grasses and highlighting the rich, chestnut coat of the buffalo as he stood atop a gentle rise, massive frame silhouetted against the horizon, horns curving skyward in a natural crown of strength, his muscles rippling beneath dense fur that now gleamed with health, every movement fluid yet deliberate, a combination of power and careful control honed through countless hours of guardianship, vigilance, and protection, a creature whose presence radiated security, majesty, and a quiet, unspoken authority over the land he inhabited. The child rested at his flank, small fingers brushing the thick fur, tracing the contours of powerful shoulders and the sweep of strong, curved horns, and the buffalo exhaled a low, resonant rumble, vibration passing through earth, muscle, and fur, a pulse of connection, a confirmation of enduring trust, of unwavering guardianship, a silent, wordless affirmation that no danger would breach this sanctuary, that every moment was devoted to the safety, warmth, and sustenance of the small life he had sworn to protect. He shifted slightly, hooves sinking into soft soil, adjusting posture to provide maximum comfort, to shield from sun and wind, to create a living embrace of muscle and presence, and the child nestled closer, fingers pressing lightly against flanks and shoulders, a tactile confirmation of bond, of care, of a shared history forged in storm, vigilance, and selfless devotion, a testament to the intelligence, empathy, and extraordinary patience of a being often misunderstood, now revealed in all its nuanced depth and majesty. The buffalo grazed briefly, sweeping head low, sweeping powerful horns over tender shoots, nudging leaves and berries toward the child with gentle precision, guiding consumption, ensuring nourishment, teaching survival through gesture and example, a living, breathing instructor of sustenance and care, every motion deliberate, every pressure measured, every exhale and rumble communicating presence, reassurance, and a profound, silent understanding of responsibility. Sunlight warmed dense fur and dampened earth, creating a haloed effect across shoulders and neck, illuminating rippling muscles and the slow, precise curvature of horns, and he pressed his massive flank gently against the child, nudging again toward fresh berries, ensuring that small hands reached nourishment, demonstrating patience and intelligence that bridged species, a silent covenant of guardianship, compassion, and connection. Hours passed in a rhythm of quiet vigilance, of subtle movement and careful guidance, hooves flexing in soft soil, shoulders shifting, muscles coiling and releasing, eyes scanning horizon while simultaneously observing every subtle breath, every twitch, every stir of the child, nostrils flaring with awareness, ears flicking to whispers of wind, distant rustle of grass, faint scent of earth, every fiber of being fully engaged in unbroken protection, an ongoing choreography of guardianship. The child pressed a face against warm fur, tracing horn and shoulder, and the buffalo exhaled, long, low vibration passing through ground, body, and fur, a pulse of reassurance, a message of safety, a living heartbeat that confirmed continuity, care, and enduring bond, a testament to instinct honed into intelligence, strength refined into empathy, raw power tempered by patience and devotion. He shifted slightly, hooves adjusting in soft earth, massive shoulders rising and falling with deliberate breaths, nudging berries again, tilting massive head to shield child from sun, wind, and stray dust, exhaling warmth and steady reassurance, muscles rippling beneath thick coat, horns catching sunlight, casting protective arcs over child, posture a living symbol of security, guardianship, and trust. The prairie exhaled in gentle waves, wind rustling grass, carrying scent of sage, damp earth, and sweet berries, and the buffalo moved with care, hooves flexing for balance, shoulders adjusting, head lowering, exhaling low rumbles, nudging, guiding, teaching, sheltering, every motion synchronized with the child's subtle movements, every breath and shift deliberate, intelligent, and compassionate. He grazed intermittently, nudging tender shoots toward small hands, shifting slightly to provide shade, rolling shoulders to shield from wind, lowering head in gentle arcs, exhaling with low vibration, ensuring warmth and comfort, every action a measured expression of guardianship and protection, intelligence expressed in care, strength refined into empathy, instinct elevated to purpose. Hours turned into quiet cycles of observation, nourishment, adjustment, and protection, prairie breathing in soft waves, sunlight shifting across wet grass, chestnut fur glistening, horns casting protective shadows, muscles coiling and releasing, hooves flexing in soft earth, eyes luminous and alert, ears flicking to smallest sounds, nostrils flaring, all senses engaged in an unbroken commitment to the child's welfare. The buffalo nudged berries repeatedly, adjusted the child's position, shifted shoulders and flanks, exhaled long, steady rumbles, each vibration a message of reassurance, presence, continuity, an affirmation of the unspoken covenant that had formed through storm, vigilance, and selfless protection. He shifted once more, hooves pressing into soft soil, powerful body curling slightly, muscles rippling under dense fur, horns arcing in protective sweep, head lowered in gentle alignment with child's movements, nostrils flaring, ears flicking, eyes scanning horizon while simultaneously monitoring every subtle motion of the small dependent, every breath, every stir, every whisper of sound, responding with precision, patience, and unwavering guardianship. The prairie stretched wide, undisturbed, sun-warming grasses, wind carrying gentle scents of earth, sage, and berries, and the buffalo continued in measured rhythm, hooves adjusting, shoulders shifting, head lowering, muzzle nudging berries toward small hands, flank curling gently around child, exhaling long rumbles, muscles coiling and releasing, every movement a testament to intelligence, empathy, and enduring, tireless care, a living symbol of strength and compassion intertwined. Hours faded toward evening, sunlight softening, casting long shadows across rolling prairie, highlighting the rich chestnut fur, powerful shoulders, and curved horns of the buffalo, eyes luminous and attentive, nostrils flaring, ears flicking, hooves adjusting, body shifting with deliberate grace, every fiber engaged in protection, teaching, and nurture. The child nestled closer, small fingers pressing against fur, and the buffalo exhaled, low, resonant vibration passing through ground, body, and fur, a heartbeat of guardianship, an affirmation of trust, continuity, an enduring bond, a living testament to instinct honed into intelligence, strength expressed through compassion, raw power tempered by patience, vigilance, and extraordinary care. He shifted again, nudged berries gently, adjusted shoulders and flanks, muscles rippling beneath dense fur, hooves flexing in soft earth, horns